The sprocket lives! The end of the sprocket debacle. This is the real sprocket. We're gonna get this fitted on the bike. Let's build a motherfucking motorcycle. Moving forward on the project. Welcome back to Saturday's Wrench.
Welcome to Saturday's Wrench. Yeah.
Alright guys, so welcome to my marathon week of getting this bike finished. I'm a little uneasy right now because I have so many unfinished tasks around the garage and it's driving me a little crazy. As you can see, I have tasks everywhere, all over here. And it's really just a really big mess and it's a little messy and I'm not feeling easy about it. As you can see, I have the rear wheel. I attached that sprocket you saw at the beginning of the video. That fit. Hallelujah. Sprocket debacle is over. We can get this rear wheel on and then I can start working on the front wheel. For the front, I had a problem with the left front fork. I had an oil seal there. It seems like in my haste to pop those rubber seals out, I scratched the inside of the fork boot here and it's causing a big leak. I had to go ahead and buy the steel epoxy and I just applied it on the inside of where the seal sits here to just fill in some of those dents that I made. Things are going to go a little quick in this video. And I'll do my best to explain what I'm doing, but I'm going to be going like a madman here, so I'm going to try and get everything cleaned up and everything done. So take a look, you can see the parts are all over the benches and everything, and we're going to try and go ahead and get some of these tasks finished. So this is the stuff I used to build up some metal inside the fork boot here. So what I had done was I had scraped the inside of the boot here. So now I just applied some steel weld all the way around to make it even, and then I'm just sanding it out a bit. The sandpaper just to bring it back down the diameter a bit. Just cleaning it out. Now hopefully I'll be able to get the seal in there. You guys have seen all this already. I'm not going to go ahead and build these on camera. I'm just going to get this done. So I'm going to go ahead, finish this up, and we'll get on the rear wheel. Just want to show you guys quickly the sprocket here. You can see it's fitting quite nicely. Now there's the circlet fits on perfectly. The washer fits on. I was able to bolt it in and it's all in place. So it's looking good. And this wheel is ready to assemble onto the bike. Alright, so here's the original Fender. As you can see, I've gone ahead and cut it down. So as you can see, it used to be like this, and there's on both sides. I took the two sides off. What you want to use is definitely want to use an angle grinder, something like this. It doesn't have to be this type, but you could see the picture of it there. So that's an angle grinder. You want to use a thinner cutoff wheel. So that's how I got through this metal. It's actually a lot harder and thicker than you think. I tried to do it with my Dremel, but then it ate through one of my cutting wheels like no problem. So, so then you can see I curved down the sides, no problem. The lip, I'm not too worried about it not extending over the top. Not a big deal at all for me. This wasn't very hard. You could even cut it off, cut it flat. You want to measure with a marker or something. Before you start cutting to get a straight cut, and then you could actually cut it off and overlap it like this and use this top one as a guide to kind of use a marker to use the same shape, and you'll get a nice rounded result here on the edges. So you can see that using the ends as a guide to round off the corners, and then if you have a metal file, when you're finished, just give it a little scrape. Something like this. That has all these metal files, small metal file. Just run, kind of get all the burrs off the edges. You don't want to leave that all kind of sharp. That's kind of dangerous. So just went through the metal file, filed it all down on both sides, smooth as eggs. Now that I have the front fork fixed up, the rear wheel is ready to go. I'm going to get all this going back again. So I had to take all the brakes off, the wheel and everything off just to fix this front fork because it was leaking oil and I didn't want to leave that. So better to do it now than 100 miles down the road. So that's all fixed up. The metal bond I used for the boot here worked perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead. This needs to go on with the front brake arm, and then the wheel can go on, then I can put the rear wheel on. The front fender originally came with 6 10mm bolts, because there's 2 here, 2 on the other side, and then 2 on the right side of the motorcycle. But for the left side, it uses the bolts that are the top mounting bolts for the brake arm. So it's the same bolts used for that. So when I put on the brake before, I hadn't realized that I needed to put this on first. So I realize it now, and it's all good. So this is in shape. This is the way it goes. I know that because the hook for the brake line goes at the back here. And I'm just going to put in these mounting bolts for the brake arm. This will be ready to go. Alright, so for the bolts that hold the front fender, the top ones and the ones on the left side, those are 9 foot-pounds. So 108 inch-pounds, my inch-pound torque wrench here, 108 inch-pounds equals 9 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and get these bolts done up. Stuff is also pretty cool. It helps anti-corrosion formula. Pretty great. It just helps the bolts not rust, basically. So I'm going to wipe some down on my fender here. Hope it doesn't rust. So the difficulty right now that I'm having is getting the brake disc in between the brake pads here. And just because everything's really new, it's pretty tight. So trying to figure out the best course of action here. And that is tight. That is really tight. I got it sandwiched. I just have to drop the weight. Try and loosen these caliper bolts out a bit just to spread out the pads. There we go. Okay, so those pads are pretty tight on there. It is sandwiched on there. Huh. What I've gone ahead and done here is just loosen up these top bolts here, the caliper bolts, just to space it out just a tiny bit, just to get the wheel in. So I'm going to get the wheel in, and then I have a feeling that once I tighten it up, I can spin the wheel maybe, and I think it just needs to wear down the pad a little bit because everything's brand new in there. The seal, the piston, the brake pad. So everything's going to be real comfy in there right now. So that's alright for now. Just loosen it off. I'm going to go ahead and get the clasps on. You know the deal with these, 13 to 18 foot-pounds. We'll get these on, and then the wheel will be on, and we can move on to the rear wheel from there. Just remember again, high side goes to the front of the bike, and you want to make sure you torque that side up first. She's on there. I'm going to tighten up the brake caliper here, and I have a feeling that it's probably going to clamp down on this wheel, but that's okay because it'll just wear down eventually. So I don't like that. So that's not even rotating at all. That's super tight. That's super clamped down tight on the wheel. It's causing it not to turn, and I haven't even torqued this down yet. So I gotta hit the drawing board on that and figure out why that's doing that. Alright, so I was able to fix that up. So what happened was I took apart the caliper here, and behind the brake pad on the piston side of the caliper there is a little plastic ring that comes with your brake pads, and that was actually sitting up against the the back of the brake pad in a wrong position, forcing the brake pad out more, so that was squeezing the brake pads together. So it was shortening the distance on the back brake, or the brake pad that sits against the piston here. So yeah, as you can see, I put it back together properly. It was just the little plastic ring was just off center a bit. So this is all good. So again, yeah, it is 25 foot-pounds on here. And go ahead, torque these up. And it's all good. The wheel's spinning. Feeling better about this. There we go. Alright, so I have my brake line here. We're going to go ahead and get this set up on the caliper here so that I could start bleeding the brakes and adding the fluid and get it flowing through. So again, this is a kit I got from Revival Cycles. I've gone ahead and sent it back to them to assemble the pieces in here. They just weren't working out for me, but they got it. I don't know, I couldn't get it to go. Maybe I didn't have a special tool that I needed. I'm not too sure, but the brake lines, they look pretty cool. I'll send a link in the bottom, and you can learn all about them from the Revival's YouTube there. And again, those guys are great guys. They're super helpful, and they take care of their customers over there. So I got my banjo bolts here. So my banjo bolt, and if you're not familiar with the way these work, there's basically a hole here that distributes the fluid inside here into inside of this banjo fitting that forces it through the line. So you should have 2 copper washers, and one copper washer goes on each side of the fitting. Kind of sandwiches the fitting just like that to prevent leaks, and what those do is they squish when you torque this down and provide a nice seal for the fluid, because everything is under a lot of pressure in there under your brakes, a good amount of pressure anyways, and so that squishes, and that's when the fluid kind of flows through the bolt into the fitting and then through the line onto the other side. And then there's another banjo bolt right here. So this is my master cylinder here. But you can get all sorts of different kinds of banjo bolt fittings, bolts. And you can get a dual, all sorts of different stuff. And you can get these coming off the master cylinder. You can see here I have a 90-degree. You can, that's what these good about these lines is that you can mix and match and kind of build them specific to your application, right? So maybe you only want a 45-degree or a 20-degree swoop off. In retrospect, maybe a 20-degree would have been better there, but I figured just get it out of the way and then get it into the head behind the headlight, and that way it's out of the way, and we're all good. So I got to look up the torque spec on that. We'll get that sorted out, but I'm just going to build up this line and get these in place. Now it's the same thing for the bottom line. The copper washers on either side of the fitting, and that'll go onto the top of the brake caliper here. Now that I figured out the positioning of my throttle and my brake here, now I can go ahead and get the banjo bolt in place, and then I'll get the fluid in there. I just looked it up online, and you can go anywhere from 22 to 28 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and give it 25 foot-pounds. And then we can get some oil in there, or some brake fluid in there. So that's at 25 foot-pounds. So these washers should be nice and tight. And if they're not, when I put in the fluid, we'll see. They'll start squirting out. So I'm going to go ahead, get 25 on the bottom one now. And then I'm going to explain the procedure to adjust your brake pad so there's the correct clearance from the manual. Alright, so there is a specific way to adjust this arm here. You can see how the arm moves here. So this bolt here has a spring on it. And you can loosen this here. And then there's a flathead screw here. When you turn it, basically when you turn the screw, you could see how the pad moves in and out. Turn this flathead screw on the brake caliper arm. You want to turn that counterclockwise just until you'll see the pad move in towards the rotor, just until it touches, and then 1/2 turn back to clockwise to get the correct spacing there. Okay, and then you gotta adjust this bolt on the end to tighten that so that that's set now. Haven't really introduced you guys to the shocks I got. These are the Icon dial-a-ride shocks I got. I had to get them to build them to my particular specifications because of the battery box. I could only allow for a certain minimum amount of squish, and I went for about 1/2 inch longer than stock just to get it a little more nimbleness on the steering. I don't think that's going to change it up too drastically, so that's good. So these are looking pretty nice. I went for the black, as you can see, black springs over the chrome body. This is looking even better than before now that I have these shocks on here. And I'm gonna go ahead and just tighten up the axle, and you can see the sprocket here. That fit on. That's the infamous sprocket. Alright, marathon wrench session. Day 1. Not bad progress. You guys saw me putting the wheel on. I torqued this up, but I still need to loosen it to get the chain on because I gotta adjust everything. I think I'm gonna call it quits for this day, day 1, but I did a lot of little random tasks that you didn't see on camera. You saw me putting the front wheel on and everything. I adjusted the brake position. Fender's now on there. She's looking alright. The shocks that I showed you, those are the new shocks. They're on. They're in place. The new sprocket finally is in place. It's all looking good. I also replaced the car boot bolts with the stainless steel Allen head. So that's looking pretty good. Oh, I adjusted the kind of the throttle and the brake position here. So that's good. But that's going to have to come off anyways because when I go to wire the bike, I'm going to need to take this off to get the wires through and cut a hole in there. Put on the rear sets. You never saw me do that, but you could see those in place. They're just kind of in place there until I can get the clutch and everything. This is obviously just there for if I needed to change the gear there. So for day 1, this is not bad. Same video. I'm just gonna, you'll probably see me wearing a different white t-shirt tomorrow. That'll do it for today, but same video. Let's go to day 2.